Hey guys, JohnMadLabs here. Today I'm going to show you how to turn your cheap budget gaming mouse into a really good gaming mouse. Let's get started. Okay, before I get into the modifications, there's one kind of main thing you have to make sure about your mouse before you actually start doing anything. Now, to open up most gaming mice, you have to take out a screw, and on some mice the screw is visible, like on this cheap Logitech one, but on most gaming mice, like this one for example, they are hidden under these mouse feet. That's what they're called, and a small magnet will help you find them. And if you think that you can comfortably trim away like that part of the mouse feet, lift it up and throw that piece away to expose the screw, if you think it's still going to function well with that amount of mouse foot left, then you can actually continue with this guide. But if you feel like your mouse feet are way too small, and if you cut away even a little bit, there's going to be not enough to even be anything. Like for example, on this mouse, the mouse feet are tiny, so that's like the size of the screw head. So if you cut away at those, it's not going to be good. So make sure you either have big mouse feet or you have replacements if they're really small. So after you expose the screws, you want to unscrew them and then pull your mouse body apart. Then you want to detach the top half from the bottom half carefully, and then you want to set that aside. Next, you're going to detach the cable, which is the part we're going to be modifying in this video. Here's another cord I modded, and this just shows you how much flexibility you will get with your mouse. Okay, so to detach this, you basically just pry this piece up carefully and then remove the whole cord from the mouse. So next you want to pop off the mouse button plastic thing, and you want to basically bend that like so, carefully, and then pop it back into place. This will eliminate any gap between it and the switches, which will make it easier to click, and this does a really good job of making clicks more satisfying and easy. First thing you need to do to the cable is chop off the USB end, and then from the other side start pulling off the paracord like so. Next you want to get rid of the rubber layer, and you can either do this by stripping off small sections, or you can just start pulling off the whole thing at once like I'm doing here. Now I opted to use the USB connector that came with the mouse, and I just stripped off all the rubber, but this is a pretty difficult process, and if you want to avoid this process, you can just buy a USB-A connector and have it be way easier. Here's a quick tip before I turn off the camera. When you have a rubber around this piece, carefully fold it upwards, make sure these pins are sticking down, and cut at these wires right here, or snip them like that, and you got this piece off. And then just push them back, and that's the best way to remove this piece from rubber. Okay, now we have this USB connector, and thankfully we didn't bend anything too much. You can always bend it back, as long as you didn't bend this rectangle part right here, you're going to be just fine. As you can see, everything still fits together nice and well, so we can start making the actual cable. So this bare wire right here is the shield wire, and sometimes it likes getting these stringy bits in the middle. Here, let's see if I can find one. Right here. Look at that. That's annoying, and you're never going to be able to get your paracord on. So you can either replace this with some other stranded wire the same diameter, or you can just eliminate this entirely, and that all starts with the same exact step. Cut, pull through, and you're done. So after you either remove or replace your shield wire, I opted to remove it because it's not that necessary. You can cut off the ugly end of the paracord, just cut a little bit off to make it smooth, and then just start feeding it in. Like so. After you're done sleeving your wire, you want to cut off the hot glue or remove the tape, and then strip the wires, and then tin them. To tin the wires, you basically just dip them in flux. You can do this without flux, but it's way easier with flux. And then just add a little bit of solder to each end. After that, you're going to solder on each of the wires to the USB-A connector, following this diagram right here. Okay, so once you solder this, you want to put on a thin piece of electrical tape or heat shrink. In my case, I put on some hot glue onto your connections to insulate them. And then you want to just take this and slide it into here. The shield cable will be used later, so you want to just take that and route it outside, because we're going to be soldering it onto the casing itself. Okay, so I'm putting this into the third hand right here. I put this on halfway, and now I squeeze out the paracord. You only have to do this if you got just the perfect amount of paracord, which I did. If you have a little bit too much, your wires are going to be a little bit loose inside, which is probably going to help flexibility, but it's also going to mean that you don't have to squeeze out this much paracord. And there we go. Now we just take some pliers, squeeze this, wrap this up like so. There we go. And that's a finished connector. And now if you have your shield wire, all you have to do is put a bit of flux on an inconspicuous area, like here for example. And then just solder it onto there, and clean it off and make it kind of smooth and flush. Okay, so I plugged it into the computer here, and now it's working, but before this it wasn't working and I couldn't figure out why. It kept saying not recognized. I tried another cable, it worked perfectly fine. I tried resoldering this after chopping off any damaged wires on this side, because there was a little wire with a dent in it, so I chopped off like a few inches. Tried it again, didn't work. So then I took like these pins right here. You can actually pull them out like so. And I rearranged them so they would match this one right here. And this ended up working. So after that, I desoldered everything, put on some heat shrink, resoldered everything, hot glued it, put it back in its case, basically all the steps I just showed you. And after that, I was ready to finally heat shrink everything. And remember, only shrink your heat shrink after you've tested everything and you're sure that everything works perfectly fine. Okay, now I have wiped off the lettering on this piece and kind of cleaned it up a little bit. And I have put the mouse back together and everything is going fine. This mouse started out as a really heavy, poor performing mouse. But after I removed a lot of the plastic, which I did off camera, and then I bent these things right here and replaced the cable, it is now a really nice performing mouse. Clicking is really, really nice. However, I would like it to be a little bit lighter, but that all comes down to the micro switches, which I can replace. But the cable itself, really flexible, really light, and really nice. And personally, I feel like I would use this on a normal daily basis. Anyways, guys, at the end of the day, this mouse is way better. And those two mods that I showed you, although relatively simple, improve it a lot and apply to most mice. Now, there are way more mods that you can do, but one, they're more complicated. Two, they're different for each mouse. And three, they're not going to be as good or as worth it as the two mods I showed here. So be sure to try these out on your mouse if you're looking for added performance. And remember, if you're having any trouble, check out the comments or my Discord for help. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!